As you know, about 85% of all tungsten comes from China. You add Vietnam and Russia to that mix, and you're talking about over 90% of tungsten supply coming from non-rule of law countries. Portugal is great because it's an EU country, it's a NATO country, it's a hard currency country, and it has a long history of tungsten production. So we have two properties. The first one is Bonnell, which historically was the largest tungsten mine in Portugal. Vila Verde, which contains the Valdegatas mine, which was historically the third largest tungsten mine in Portugal. So those two together could be the most important tungsten project outside China.
Hello and welcome back to The Next Big Rush, where we talk about junior mining investments. And today I am bringing on somebody who's very special because they have an opportunity that you might not even heard of. We're going to go into tungsten. Why right now is possibly the best time for you to be taking a look at this. Freshly come into the public markets is Allied Critical Metals. So Roy, welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Awesome. It's great to have you here, Roy, because I first want people to understand that, okay, tungsten, it's going to be exotic. It might be the beginning of a new trend. I like to be really early to things, and I like to bring my subscribers new ideas that are just about to break out. Before we go into the tungsten story, so that people understand that, this isn't just a pop-up shop of a few people trying to make a quick buck. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the team, please?
Sure. Our team consists of a variety of experienced geos, lawyers, mining engineers, people who have had success in these type of early stage companies before, and coalesced in positions in the company, either as board members or officers or working on the property themselves, all with the common end goal of bringing our brownfield sites to production in a timely manner.
And are there any companies that you guys have been involved before that you could mention that people might recognize?
Absolutely. So the last two companies that I was involved in were Founders Metals, FDR, on the venture exchange here in Canada, and Thesis Gold. Joining me on the board are a couple of people who were instrumental in that. There's Colin Paget, who is the current CEO of Founders and was named CEO of the Year recently here in Canada at PDAC, as well as Sean O'Neill, who was the lawyer who helped us set up both of those companies. Additionally, we have João Barros, who is situated in Portugal, close to our properties, and has a depth of experience coming from a very well-respected mining family and heading up the Mineralia group in Braga. Additionally, we've got strong support from Toronto as well. Mike Gallego joining us on the board, another well-respected businessman and lawyer. We've got a deep bench, as we would say in the never-ending hockey analogies that us Canadians like to use this year.
That's very accurate. So, okay. I started talking about uranium when it was at $18 and it went all the way to 107, then came back down to like the high 60s, and now it's going back up again. Mm-hmm. When we talk about tungsten, why is the opportunity for tungsten now? Because this has been, these are development projects that we're going to get into that you guys, have a hold on. Why is tungsten a 2025 story and not a 2020 story?
Right. Well, I think it's the whole geopolitical narrative that's going on right now. As you know, about 85% of all tungsten comes from China. You add Vietnam and Russia to that mix, and you're talking about over 90% of tungsten supply coming from non-rule of law countries. And this is at a time of heightened military tension throughout the world. And of course, tungsten is fundamental to any type of military armament or ballistics. Um, this is a time of also where we're seeing the paradigm of free trade that's existed for so many years being replaced by much more nationalistic interests. Part of that is rising tariffs, and that tariff war that we're seeing now, which is primarily between the United States and China, is being fought in part through the Chinese uh, advantage in terms of resource and what they're supplying to the West. So recently, China, for instance, has turned off the taps on tungsten supply to the United States in particular, and tungsten being of such huge importance to the U.S. We've seen prices in tungsten increase dramatically even over the last couple of weeks. So, and I think we're just starting to see that, and the West realizes that, and we're at a point now where there's a bit of a frenzy to find critical metal supplies, not just tungsten, but tungsten in particular. There is no current production in North America of tungsten, which is its largest market, and very limited production in Europe. But we're at a point in the world which I think demonstrates what's going on, where we have the president of the United States essentially going around threatening to take over other countries, even friendly countries, for their critical metals, which is unprecedented if you think of it. But it underlines where we are in terms of the urgency to find new supplies in the Western world of critical metals. And that's not just true of U.S., it's true of the EU as well, with their developing policies all around finding autonomy for the EU in terms of its critical metal supply.
Gotcha. So the thinking here is basically that with the current political situation in the world of a more nationalistic, maybe East versus West sort of situation that we have, the struggle of power, it makes more sense for tungsten to shine now because China is such a large producer. I mean, how much are we talking about here? How big of a producer are they? And with your projects in Portugal, does that technically mean that you could provide tungsten to all of Europe and potentially, just the West as a whole?
Well, I don't think we could replace China right away. We'd always be a price taker rather than a price setter. But I think certainly there is a substantial amount of tungsten that we can supply to the West that would materially reduce the amount necessary from the Chinese. But and it's not just tariffs. As I said, from a military perspective as well, we've got heightened military activity. Every time you have heightened military activity over the last 100 years, we've seen a spike in tungsten prices. And I think that's really what we're starting to see now. The difference in the past and now is most of that tungsten is coming from what we see as the main adversary of the West in the world today. So if you're depending on a metal like tungsten to build your armaments, to build your military planes, to build your missiles, but you're relying on your main adversary to provide you with that tungsten, it's not a very sustainable position. And the same is true when you get to industries. I mean, 30% of all tungsten goes into tungsten carbide, which is used to build cutting tools and drills, which are essential to any type of industry, from automobiles to our own industry of mining. And again, we would be relying on our economic adversaries to supply us with that. It's a very precarious situation, and yeah, I know it's something that the EU and the US are looking at and are quite concerned about.
So when we talk about tungsten, what is the price like right now, and what do prices need to be in order for you guys to be making money?
Well, we would be making money right now. A lot of these mines in the West shut down in 1986 because of low prices, and that's that's what really gave the Chinese the advantage in terms of tungsten supply. Where we are now, the last prices that we heard were $430 an MTU, which is up substantially from about $300 an MTU when we started this project in early 2023, and up substantially from 2 weeks ago when I heard the prices were 385. So, we're seeing those prices accelerate, but we're making good money in a project like ours anywhere over $275 an MTU for sure.
Awesome. So let's get into it. What are the projects and why are they special?
Well, they're special for a couple of reasons. One, because they're existing brownfield projects in Portugal. Portugal is great because it's an EU country, it's a NATO country, it's a hard currency country, and it has a long, long history of tungsten production. So we have two properties. The first one is Boralia, which historically was the largest tungsten mine in Portugal, producing over 10,000 tons of tungsten concentrate during its production, and it was in production from about 1904 until it shut down in 1986. And Vila Verde, which contains the Valdegatas mine, which was historically the third largest tungsten mine in Portugal. What's wonderful about Portuguese tungsten is its type of mineralization called wolframite. When I go to the smelters and I talk to them about tungsten, the first thing they say is, we love Portuguese wolframite. And the reason they love it is because it's so clean and it's easy to make a concentrate from. Essentially, what we do is just mechanical separation. So it doesn't involve lots of chemicals and the extra cost, the extra time in permitting that is required to do that. So for those reasons, it's very special to have the two projects that we do have. And again, because strategically it's located in Portugal, it's easy to move it to the United States, or it's easy to move it to the rest of Europe. It's not exposed like a mine would be close to the North Korean border or the Russian border in times of military uncertainty. So both from a military perspective and an economic perspective, we think our projects are of great value.
Okay, so you got two tungsten projects, and what is really the plan with them? Do you have sort of a timeline of check marks that you want to go through? How's the permitting process like?
So we've already spent about $4 million as a private company getting a current resource estimate on Boralia, the first of our two projects. As we mentioned, we just listed about 3 weeks ago, so we're a brand new story. And we did a concurrent financing of about $4.6 million at that time as well. That money we are dedicating to actually increasing the size of the resource estimate on Boralia. We think we can probably double it. And by September, we hope not only to have that done, but to have our pre-feasibility completed as well, probably at the end of September, beginning of October. So we're moving very fast on that front. Secondly, on our other property, Vila Verde, we're going to start. The drilling there too. Eventually, we think that could be 3 times as big as Boralia. So those two together could be substantially the most important tungsten project outside of China.
Okay, let me just stop you there.
Right.
Size wise, what are the comparisons, right? Because when you talk about tonnage in the tungsten world, I think that the new investor to the story doesn't quite grasp what's a small deposit, what's a large deposit. Where does that stand in sort of the worldwide different tungsten projects?
So I would tell you that currently the most important Western tungsten project, which is really the only other public tungsten project in Portugal is the Panasquara project at which is run by El Monte, which I think is probably the standard for everyone else. Our grades and our size at Borealia are probably equivalent to that. And I would tell you that, again, Villa Verde can be much, much bigger. So we're probably looking at about maybe up to 30 million tons at Borealia. And then you add Villa Verde to that. We think by the time it's all done, and obviously we'd have to do all of the drilling and everything to prove it out, we probably have about 100 million tons there. But I don't think we need to prove out 100 million tons, because I think the real story here and the reason that our deposit is exciting is because we want to move to production as quickly as possible, which we think we can do because we have that history of production on our properties, and we know it's clean. And we know that even with the technology they had 100 years ago, they were able to make a 66% concentrate. So we should be able to do the same with much more advanced and precise technology than they ever had access to. And so it's our goal in the short term to put a smaller plant in place. We're already permitted for 150,000 tons on Borealia, for example, and we'd like to start producing concentrate right away and start selling that to smelters. One, to create an immediate cash flow for the company, to help mitigate dilution to that shareholders would otherwise be subject to. Two, because it helps to reduce risks associated with scaling up to our larger size facility that we would like to eventually build. And three, by providing concentrate to smelters right away and getting them comfortable with our concentrate into their production schedule. They'll be there when we want to build in a much more robust way. They'll be there, and when we want to build that bigger plant, which we want to build, which will be trading about 1 million tons of mineralized ore a year. So we're moving quickly, and I think the story about this is that because we're sort of an advanced brownfield project, we can get into production and cash flow and becoming a real mining company in the short term, as opposed to just continual exploration.
Got it. And what's the timeline for the pilot plant? All things working for the good of your company.
So we already have an LOI in place with Global Tungsten Powder, which is the largest non-Chinese tungsten smelter in the world. And we think that once we have our financing in place, it's only 6 to 9 months before we're able to start shipping concentrate to GTP.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Look, people who are going to hear the story, some of them are going to discount it because it's not their thing. It's not gold and silver, whatever. Some people are going to add it to their watch list because they're going to want to know if you guys follow through with what the plan is. And some people are just straight up going to buy the stock. For those people buying the stock today and trying to get a foothold in a small position and trying to build up as you build the company, what can they expect in the next 3, 6, etc. Number of months, news flows wise, so that they follow the story along and things are going as they're supposed to?
Well, I think it's a good time to buy the stock because, as I told you, we just listed. Two, as you know, we just a week or so ago we were listed in Frankfurt, and it's our goal to be listed in the U.S. on the OTCQB probably in the first or second week of June. In that, as well as that, as I mentioned, we started a drilling program already to increase the size of our resource estimate on Borealia. So we're going to have news flow coming out on that. As we're building the company, the news flow will be coming out, I think, relatively quickly. We've got exciting news around people joining the company, and as we seek to advance our pilot plant and also add other offtake agreements to what we already have, I think there's be a lot of value accretive news coming out. So I think where we are now, not just in terms of all that news, but in terms of relative to other publicly traded tungsten companies, it's probably a good time to invest.
Awesome. Well, this is not financial advice, but if Almonte is anything to go by, then I think you guys have a very bright future ahead.
Yeah, Almonte's had a great run. I think they're up like 4 times in the last few months, and I think that sort of underscores our thesis around tungsten as a timely investment.
Absolutely. Cool. So, Roy, where can people go and find out more about your story, your company, and what you guys are up to?
So they can always go to our website where we have all our information, all our news releases, all our corporate presentations posted and updated constantly, and that's at alliedcritical.com. Additionally, we trade on the CSE here in Canada. Our symbol is ACM, and they're also their site is a great source of information as well. And they can follow you at the next big rush.
There
Another
we
great.
go. Another great site where you can hear all about what's happening there. Awesome, Roy. Thank you so much. And we'll catch up for sure. Maybe I'll go visit you up north because I'm already here in Portugal, so it's much easier for me to make it a trip.
Yeah, that would be great. Love to have you.
Cool. Awesome. Cheers and see you next time.
Thank you.